Hey, everybody. Today we have for you podcast number 133. Today's podcast is titled, Decide to Be Happy Today. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. We are Dr. Pete and Sandy Lombardi. This is the Limitless Life Network podcast where we flesh out the limitations that are preventing you from reaching goals and living the life that you are called to lead. And really fantastic week. We have a snowstorm outside on April 8th as we're recording this in our recording studio, which is a room above our garage. So what do you have to say to start us off today? You got anything interesting about last week that you want to thank anybody? You just want to, you can just smile and look pretty.
We are just always grateful for this listening community, and it feels more and more like a community. Like we're not just talking to a camera. Like it's just, we see a lot of you during the week. We talk to you texting. And so it feels like more of a community. And some of you are talking with each other about things that we're talking about on the podcast. So it's just building, and that's exciting.
Yeah, super cool. Got an opportunity to see Dr. Matt Allen this weekend, and he gifted us each a cross that he carries with him. He said he gives out 3 every day, and he gave us each a cross. And I just thought that was very special. He's an avid listener. He said he looks forward to listening every week, as many of you do. And we are so grateful for you. We are very blessed to have you as a part of this mission. And we feel a tremendous urging from you all, a burden to just continue to do our very best to deliver the content that we do each week. So thank you so much. So today's title is Decide to Be Happy Today. What's your backstory, Sandy?
The backstory with the title is from our church service on Sunday. Pastor John referenced, I don't know how he came across this, but, and it took me a bit to find it. So he just talked about this song and the lyrics, It's Okay. And he mentioned a young woman who wrote the song and who was battling cancer. So that's what I had to go on. But I dug into it a little bit, and she was, it was this young woman who was on The Voice or American Idol, one of the talent competitions.
Yeah.
And so anyway, she got up to sing, and they were asking her about her backstory, and she didn't share much, but reluctantly, as they asked more questions, shared that she was currently battling cancer. And anyway, the song is It's Okay. And I'm reading about her. One of the things that she said that Pastor mentioned was, you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy. And if you just think about that, like I have a good friend that I thought, this is a good thing for her. And, but for all of us, like if we wait for life to not be hard, we will be waiting forever, right?
Exactly.
There's definitely those ebbs and flows of there's amazing days and great days, but overall life is hard. And so choosing to be happy every day. And so we're going to dig a little bit into that.
Yeah, that's point number 1.
It is.
Well, yeah.
Choose wisely.
Choose wisely, yes. So, the title is Decide to Be Happy Today. So choosing happy over being depressed, choosing to be understanding instead of being offended, choosing abundance over feeling financial stress. Because the latter of everything I just gave you a dichotomy of is wasted energy. Being depressed, being offended, being, just lamenting about financial woes, all of that is wasted energy. It doesn't do anything to really fix anything. But when we're in a state of joy and in a state of understanding and abundance, you can be so much more productive. You have so much more opportunity and potential for going beyond what you would do otherwise.
Pastor John talked about the scripture that the Lord's mercies are new every morning, right? And every morning we can make that choice of seeing abundance, seeing more than, and that's just really powerful. Like every morning that you wake up, you can, in times of prayer, and just choose, I'm going to find joy today, no matter what. So, like, even if we were just talking this past week, it's like all these bills were coming due, and taxes are due for all of us, right? And you could feel a little bit overwhelmed, but then Pete said, it just struck me like how blessed we are. We have abundance, even though we feel lack at times. And,
Yeah. I mean, well, this last month was crazy for us. Like you couldn't have asked for like a more perfect storm of like outflow of just spending everything. I had to put a new roof on the office. That was $30,000. I had to buy a new X-ray generator, $12,000. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, by the way, you made more money last year, so you owe an extra huge amount of money in taxes. And it's like, oh my goodness, where is this all going to come from? And you know what? The birds don't wake up every day and wonder, how are they going to feed themselves tomorrow? Instead, they're grateful for the worm they catch today.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? Like, you can spin yourself so out of control with thinking about and worrying about the future that is yet to come. And instead of being, so grateful for today, and that you have clean air in your lungs right now, whatever it might be, you are blessed with something that is very spectacular. And we take those blessings for granted because we're too busy, we're too focused on this lack of something, whatever it might be. And that's paralyzing. It literally paints you into a corner where you can't figure out how to get out of it. So, I mean, that we could talk about this for hours because I can think of so many situations where people feel paralyzed and they say that they have anxiety over stuff. And it's like, you have anxiety because you're not looking at your blessings. I mean, I'm not trying to minimize that, but it's a habit that you start to create. It's this pattern you start to run. And as painful it is to receive a message like that we repeat, we are habitual every day in everything that we do. And you will keep getting these same results over and over again because you're going to stay in these patterns. And the way to get out of those patterns is to start with what you have that is that you're grateful for, with the blessings that God has bestowed upon you today. His mercies are new every day.
Yeah. And it might just be the sustenance for that. Like I think of the God providing manna. Like it might not look spectacular. It might be a cracker of food,
Right.
but it's sustenance for that day. And that's all you need.
Yeah. It seems like, oh, it's just simple, but you don't know my story. Well, I don't know your story. We've got our own story. Everybody's got their own story, but I'll tell you, there is a blessing in there somewhere, and you just need to find it and focus on that. Yeah. So.
All right. We'll jump to point number 2, which is jumping to conclusions.
Oh my goodness. Well, so these next few points are going to come from this men's conference that I attended this weekend. And I was talking to Dr. Allen. I said, I know you like the podcast, but you may not want to listen to this week's because it's going to be a rehearsal of a lot of the points that you heard today. And he was like, no, that's great. Rinse and repeat is always good. Right. So hearing something a second and third time is always good. But one of the things that our speaker, Josh Finley, was talking about was how drama in our life becomes a huge distraction. And I would link it to this idea of deciding to be happy, because drama will take away from your happiness. It'll take away from the joy that God has planned for you in life, and knowing that joy. And one of the things that we do is that we jump to conclusions in our mind. And and that's really point number 2, jumping to conclusions. And that's because we don't always see things the way they are. We see things the way we are, which means that in our mind, he described it like a movie director. It's like you're a movie director of some drama that you're spinning in your mind. And the enemy doesn't want you to see people around you accurately. And there's an example of this in Acts in chapter 28, verses 1-6. And this is where Paul is trying to get to Rome to go on trial because he's taking his case before Caesar. And he's on this ship, and they they shipwreck on the island of Malta. And so the natives bring them in, and there's this fire, and Paul reaches into the fire, and he gets bit by a serpent. And so immediately the natives judge him as a murderer because, oh, look, he didn't survive the shipwreck because he's a good guy. He survived, and now he's being punished because he's a murderer. Right. And that's why the serpent kills him and it bites him. I'm sorry. Doesn't kill him. Thank you. Because that's the next part of it. As you continue to read on, you'll find out that not only does it not bother him, the venom doesn't kill him at all. And so now the natives judge him again incorrectly, and they say he's a god. Okay. Paul's a great guy and everything, but he's not a god. So, but the whole idea is that they jump to these conclusions, and we do the same thing, right? And we do the same thing, and that is not helpful whatsoever. All it does is it creates this drama that distracts us, and we misinterpret the signs for what they truly are, okay? So don't be somebody that jumps to conclusions. I mean, we do it anyway, but be aware, be conscientious of the fact that when you get into a situation and it seems dramatic to you, check yourself and say, am I jumping to a conclusion here? Because if you're stressed about something and you're rehearsing this in your mind, you may be jumping to conclusions about some things that you don't have the evidence of.
I don't know if anyone else can relate, but I can. Like I'll pray to this a lot. Just happened yesterday with a situation, and I knew I needed to talk with a person to really understand their heart. Because just reading this document, it was like I knew I was jumping to some conclusions. And anyway, I hope some of you can relate that we don't always know the heart of the person, and our mind is quick to fill in the blanks.
Yeah. For sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
Point number 3.
Point number 3, making stuff up. I guess that is very similar, isn't it?
It is. And that's why I said these kind of blend together here. Making stuff up is another thing that we do. And it's actually part of how our brain is wired. And if you've ever done like a physical task before that is very awkward to you, and the more you do it, like you have to think about how to do something that involves a lot of balance and coordination for the first few times, maybe the first several times. But if you do it hundreds and hundreds of times, eventually your brain will predict how to orchestrate the coordination of your muscles so that you all of a sudden develop these smooth movements and it starts to become graceful. And if you've ever watched somebody pole vault that's an expert, they make it look effortless, almost like, oh, anybody could do that, until you actually go try to do it and you can't even get off the ground without hurting yourself. So I guess my point is that we do this in our mind all the time, is that we actually make stuff up. So our mind will fill in the gaps in the absence of facts or evidence. And it's crazy because again, you're like this movie director, and because you have a couple of bits and pieces of information, you'll just not only jump to conclusions, but you'll actually make up a whole new story about that. You'll actually add in some details that never existed, and you'll come up with this creative content on your own as if you're trying to, like create a new reel to get, more likes on social media. And not only that, and this is blending another point in, is that we will actually come up with motives for why people do things. We will jump to the conclusion. We will make stuff up in our mind about people's motives. as to why they do things. And this creates a very thrilling drama in our mind. It is tasty, it is juicy, and it seems to make perfect sense because your brain is creative and you can create such a vivid image in your mind or a movie in your mind, and it's not even accurate. And we see this played out in social media all the time, and you could use politics to show you that you could have such a dichotomy, one side totally different than the other. And if you, depending on where you're getting the source from, both of them seem very viable because they're using partial facts, they're jumping into conclusions, they're adding in a little bit of extra, and they also assign motives as to why somebody is doing something.
As you're talking, I'm just realizing the power of Satan over our minds because I've seen this happen to myself in this past week. And I know my motive and my heart was not evil against, say, this person that I created this story. But Satan used the situation to make me fill in the gaps with things that created this theatrics, this storyline that now, now that I've had a conversation with the individual, you realize that filling in those gaps, that wasn't accurate. And I don't think and for most of you, our heart isn't evil against whatever the situation is, but the devil sure loves to twist it that way. And then it just makes complete sense. Oh, that's logical. That's how this evolved. When no, it wasn't at all how it evolved. And I don't know, my thoughts are spinning on that. So,
well, yeah, I mean, any drama, any good drama has a victim, right? It has kind of a hero in the story, and then it's got some level of strife or conspiracy going on where there's this conflict that is not resolved. So if you've got those elements, then you've got a great drama. And we know how to create that in our mind. But all of this stuff becomes a huge distraction to your happiness, to your joy, and it really limits your life. So that brings us to point number
4, preconceived notions that steal your happiness.
Yeah.
And this was good. You said our eyes can only see what our ears can only hear, and our ears can only hear what our brain is looking for.
Right. So, in other words, we think we're looking objectively. We think we're listening objectively, but our mind is looking for certain things. In other words, our radar is kind of already preset to pick up on certain things. And sometimes we'll even finish people's sentences thinking we know what they're actually getting at. And they may stop you and say, no, that's not where I'm going with this. And has that ever happened to you? Where you start to listen to somebody and you think you know where they're going, but you're totally wrong because you stopped listening because you jumped to conclusions already. But we develop these preconceived notions as if we're already prepared and getting ready to be offended, which again, being offended is a choice, right? An offense, something that is offensive, is an event. Like something can happen, and then we judge it and choose to be offended. And then now we're going to live in this because I'm offended, right?
I think that I was observing that happen in a group the other day, and I think it often is because we're talking too much and we're not listening enough. If we stopped talking and explaining our offense, describing our offense, and if we were listening more, we wouldn't become offended in the first place.
Yeah. And so this begs the question, how do you stop this? And if you're recognizing this drama, you have to notice your emotions. You have to literally pick up on the fact that you're getting worked up over something, right? And that's hard to admit. But you have to start there. You have to start by first admitting that I'm getting worked up over this thing. And then you have to try to deconstruct it, which means usually you have to become vulnerable. And you have to go to the person and say, hey, You know what? I'm just going to tell you straight up. This is how I'm feeling from what you presented to me. And so I know it's not, I can't believe it's all right, but please help poke holes in my story.
Yeah.
Like literally
And then
show
stop and
show me
listen.
where I've gone off the rails, because this is this is crazy. I can't imagine that I'm right on this, but maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but please poke holes in my story. And more times than not, if you can be that vulnerable, you will deflate, de-escalate, and get back on track and strengthen a relationship that was about to go south on you.
That's good.
Yeah. So, yeah, that brings us to point number
5. Okay.
Point number 5.
The burden produces the vision.
Yeah, this is something that really, I think, resonated with Sandy as I was describing this to you. What is the burden? Well, the burden is something that is not only super important to you, but this is something that if it's a real burden, it means that you are willing to fight for something, right? Like, so maybe it's an injustice that you want to see fixed or righted in some way. Like this is where your passion lies, but from a burden, it creates a vision, like a place where you're trying to go. And, when you figure out what the burden that God puts on your heart in your life is, you will work toward that, right? So I know for me right now at this stage of my life, my burden right now is to try to express how important it is for you to develop a great relationship and the great habits around your relationship with Jesus Christ. Like, if I can express to you the meaning and impact that it's made on my life through, and so this podcast is a way that I'm trying to express this to you, because it influences everything. It influences all your relationships. It influences your family. It influences your health, your finances, your future, and everything that you interact with. So for the rest of my life, if I could ever get that across to you, that's what I'm going to be doing. That's the burden of my heart. So I know what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life is trying to express that to people. The burden of the Lord will literally make you want to fight. And when you can get that into your being, then you're not afraid to go to battle. And it's not necessarily that you're battling, like physically fighting with somebody. It's a battle every day with the 6 inches between your ears, with the trauma that is trying to distract you from really understanding and knowing and owning the burden. And there was something that the Romans figured out a long time ago, and it's why they built a Colosseum, was that if we could distract the people, then we could do whatever we want with the government. And so they said, let's give them bread and circus. And that's what we have today. We have bread and circus to constantly distract us, to pull our attention away from knowing God's burden. The enemy doesn't want you to know the burden of the Lord. And so what do they give you? They give you Netflix and Amazon Prime, right? They give you
Social media.
They give you social media and the ability to scroll and to, FaceTime people. I mean,
They give us Democrats and Republicans, right, to fight amongst ourselves.
Look, there's a division. Pick a side, and then you guys tear each other apart, right? That's that's the gladiator, fighting the lion in the arena, and everybody's watching. And the arena is the social media platform, right? Do you guys see that? Because if you can open your eyes to that, then you realize, wow, it's all bread and circus. It's drama. And what is it distracting me from? It's distracting me from finding out what God is putting on my heart to do for the rest of my life here on earth. And how many souls are we going to save?
Yeah, it's good. Yep.
Yeah. So that's
circus.
that's point number 5. Yeah, today's a choice, and you guys all chose correctly because you chose to listen to the podcast today. So today was a great one. And anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay.
Just choose what you're going to do with today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Choose. Every day we have choices. So, You guys know that. We love and appreciate you. And that's a wrap for this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. We look forward to you tuning in each and every week so you can stay connected, be inspired, and keep moving toward your best life by stripping away your limitations.
Yeah, Lord, show us the burden that you have for each of us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Here's the music.
Thank you.
You're welcome.